Hi, I'm Sarah,
And I'm Tess.
and this is the Basically Bookish podcast.
Today's episode is a special one. It's our mid-year reading check-in. We're roughly 6 months into the year, probably a little bit later, don't mind us, always late to a trend. But it's time to see how our reading goals are going, for better or for worse.
We're talking stats, standouts, surprise favorites, total disappointments, and everything in between. If you're a mood reader, a planner, or just flying by the seat of your TBR, this episode's for you.
We'll also share some of the books we still want to read before the year wraps, plus our most anticipated releases coming up.
Make sure you're following the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube with the handle at Basically Bookish Pod to share your mid-year book stats too.
Also, we are still working on our Throne of Glass series, so if you're waiting on Air of Fire vlogs and reviews from us, don't worry, those are coming too. We're just taking a little sidebar and reading some other things, talking about some other books that we've read, and all right, let's crack open this half-year stack and get into it.
All right, so it's time for us to fess up and say if we have actually finished any of the books on our TBR. And I do not think I have finished any, or even I've started one of the books on our TBR, on my TBR from earlier in the year, which was Spark of the Everflame. How are you doing, Tess?
So, I think that I fear you may be at a disadvantage because I'm looking at I'm looking at our TBR, which, by the way, if you haven't seen our 2025 TBR video, we'll link it in the description, so you can check that out before you watch this one. But I'm looking at our TBR as one connected TBR. But I have started reading the books that I put on my personal TBR, and I feel like I'm just kind of pulling you along for the ride with me. And I do think
I'm
that
having fun. I am enjoying this ride. I really like it. And I don't even know that I had another ride planned, really.
but I do think that I tend to finish books more quickly than you do. So I feel like we're getting kind of through my half of the TBR, and then we're going to circle back.
You can make that one around.
Because I started Spark of the Everflame, but then I was like, oh, you know what? I want us to read this together so we can kind of blind react to it the way that we're planning on doing for One Dark Window. So then I pulled you over to One Dark Window, which is again on my TBR. That being said, I have read quite a few of the books on my TBR. I think the only one that I have not started is English is my first language. But I think the only book that's on my TBR that I haven't started so far is going to be When the Moon Hatched.
Yes. Well, I'm getting an A on this group project by association. I've really enjoyed all the books that we've read off of our collective TBR. I'm in no rush to get anywhere, and I really enjoy this little ride that we're going on with our listeners and just hearing any recommendations and just where everybody else is at in their TBR. Some of you are much ahead. I know some people that are like 18 books ahead of their TBR, and I'm still trying to keep up with the 6 or 4 books that we said that we would finish. But
It's okay.
maybe we could start with our best books of the year so far.
Do you want to start?
Yes, and mine are just absolute flat out favorites. It's Kingdom of Ash, and to be honest, I really liked Manacled. It's really grown on me. I'm just gonna own it. I love it. I love Manacled.
I'm right there with you. Manacled has been one of my favorites that I've read this year. Kingdom of Ash, definitely a favorite. And I actually really enjoyed Cruel Prince. I thought that was a super fun series. And we started One Dark Window, and I think if it continues to go the way that it's been going, that might be one of my favorites for this year. But we'll see.
Yeah, I was going to say for what we were going to cover next is, are there any favorite new authors that you've discovered this year?
Right, and that's going to kind of echo the books that I just talked about. Sin-Lin Yu blew me out of the water. She broke my heart apart. She tore my soul out of my body. She placed it back in there for a moment and then just like shattered what was remaining. So I'm like, I love you. I hate you. I respect you. I would do anything for you.
Yeah, but no matter what, I can't be without you.
Right. So Sin-Lin Yu, you definitely have some new fans.
Hit us up, girl. Yeah, for me, Rachel Gellig has been a standout new author that we've come across. As you know, I was up on the Central Coast of California this last weekend, and I happened to walk into a Barnes and Noble where she had two signed copies of her first book, One Dark Window, and Two Twisted Crowns. And I tried to play it cool, but just like told every single person working there how excited I was. And she is local to the Central Coast. So it was cool to see someone in our local area.
I agree. And Holly Black. I actually really like her writing. I like this dark fairy tale style. I like how easy it is to digest. And I definitely am looking forward to reading more of her works.
Yep, I agree. So how about new favorite characters? Is there any new favorite character that you're obsessed with?
So I had to think about this one for a while because obsessed I feel like is such a strong word. And like I haven't met another Aelin or Manon this year, really. But I will say I am obsessed with fanfic Draco Malfoy.
Yes, I know. We watched the canon Harry Potter films maybe like a month ago, and I just could not take my eyes off Draco. I'm like, maybe this could be, maybe the fanon really is sort of canon, you know? And I was trying to like fill in the dots. It's interesting to reapproach the movies after reading Manacled and how much it changes for you.
Absolutely. So I also find Jude to be really fun and reckless. I love a messy like protagonist who's just kind of stirring the pot and is a little chaotic and
Yeah.
makes questionable decisions that lead for a really rich and funny and interesting story. So I like Jude, and I really like the dynamic between Elspeth and Nightmare.
Yes, I love the entire concept in One Dark Window between the magic and just the idea of something living in your head and no one knowing about it is like chef's kiss on the imagination, and the way that it portrays so much of how we think of ourselves and how there's this little monster living in our head or in our soul or something like that, and how we don't feel like we can show it to anyone. I thought that was such a good analogy for the nightmare in her head. You know, I was going to say, I'm so happy that we got introduced to Jude Duarte, because I think that for me, she's just one of the most like visually interesting in the most visually interesting world. And it's such a rich world. And I love her little horn buns. And I think that you are sort of mimicking that right now, and it's really cute. And I love that you love Jude so much. It's cool to be introduced to these characters, because I think we learn about each other, and we're also learning about the little nightmares inside of our head. And I think that it's just fun to have that somewhere to come together and to have an objectively safe place where we can chat out these little nightmares.
I agree. Do you have any other favorite characters that you want to touch on?
Raven Yu from
Oh, okay. I see
think
it.
he's really interesting so far. I'm interested to see where that goes. Yeah, so I'm really interested in the dynamic between Elspeth and Raven Yu. I like that I'm only 7 or 8 chapters into One Dark Window, but I like the way that the magic is in that world. And I also like the way that he's tolerating Elspeth and the way that she's treating him. I'm interested to see where that goes.
Yes, he's definitely tall, dark, handsome, mysterious. So I can see that. I'm into that.
Yeah. And what about books with standout artwork, designs, or covers? Were there any books that you just loved the art with?
So again, Manacled.
That's on mine too. I literally just, Avondale is one of the best artists out there. She's just doing great stuff. And I love the way that Avondale and Sinlin Yu work together on this project. They've really lifted each other up and brought each other together. And they've created something that will last lifetimes.
I agree. And One Dark Window.
Yeah.
I love this cover.
Me
It's
too.
so beautiful.
Yeah, right. And I also love the tarot cards aspect at the beginning of every chapter.
Yes.
And again, just like the picture that it paints in your head.
Yes. Yeah. When I first bought this bookshelf, I had decided that I wasn't going to buy books before reading them just because I have a very small space. So space is limited. And I figured I would wait until I read a book and I really loved it, and then I would buy a physical copy. But I had heard such great things about One Dark Window that I was pretty certain I was going to at least like really enjoy it. And just this cover is just so gorgeous that I went ahead and bought it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's a very logical and sane way to deal with a bookshelf, to actually read the book before you buy it. But so every now and then the artwork gets the best of you, and it's undeniably gorgeous on a bookshelf.
I agree. So our next question is the book that was the hardest to finish.
Yeah, for so far, I hate to say it, but I guess it's the only one that isn't finished on my TBR is Spark of the Everflame. I've started it and I just couldn't get into it yet, but I know I'm gonna love that book. And so I'm gonna try to get back into it. It's another young adult book about dragons, and we know that that's interesting to us. It has a magic system that works with the dragons, and so we know that's something that we like. But I just couldn't get into that one right off the bat. How about you?
I think that it definitely picks up slowly. I put it down for now because we're reading One Dark Window. I think I'm on page or chapter like 20 or something like that. There's still no dragons. There's kind of like a magical creature who's like hanging out now a little bit. But I do think that the pacing on that one is a little bit slow to pick up, but I am starting to like get some interest. I'm excited to go back to it eventually, but I don't know if it's going to be, it's not on my list right now of the hardest to finish.
Yeah,
I
I
have
agree.
two on my list for very different reasons.
Okay, let's hear them. I am interested.
The first one on my hardest to finish list was Onyx Storm, because what the helly? What was that? What the
Eliante.
hellionce?
Yeah, I agree. And the farther we get away from it, the more vengeful I am about it.
Great. And I'll get into that a little bit more because that's also in another category that we're going to go
Yeah,
over.
but I do have to say, every now and then I just think about how she didn't know the name of her land. And she's like and I just throw the book, just throw it. You know what?
Yeet.
You're dead on with that one.
Yeah, so Onyx Storm, and then also Manacled. Because how could she do that to us? How could she leave us like that?
Right. Yeah. It was, yeah, I agree. I literally found myself like having heart palpitations when it jumped 10 years in the future. I was panicking because I knew that so much had to be wrapped up and I knew that the fallout from what was happening was going to be great, you know?
And then just that ending scene, that last line is just,
I
how
knew
could
it.
you do that?
I knew the line and I was sobbing through it.
Right. Page turners we couldn't put down.
Yeah, for me, it was Kingdom of Ash. I loved it. It's funny because, like, a page turner for me is actually a really slow turn of the physical page because I just really get through like every single line. I want to see exactly how things are written. And I think that's another reason why I get physical copies a lot of the time is because there was just so much in Kingdom of Ash for me, and I just needed to really sit down and process that. It took me forever, but it was nonstop. How about for
So
you?
I'm just going to keep on beating the manacle drum
It's good. Yeah.
because that was my first audiobook, and I at times found myself like looking for things to clean in my house so I could just continue to listen.
Right.
I've never had that experience before.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was all consuming.
Oh, I'm so glad that you were able to experience that through Audible because I did really like the audio version of it. And I'm really excited for the alchemized version that's going to come out at the end of the year.
Same.
But not to get ahead of ourselves. So, what was a 2025 release that we meant to read but didn't yet? Did you have anything on your list?
So I kind of had to think about that at first because I was like, well, what just came out recently? And I fear I am also a victim of hype. And I really want to read Silver Elite. That one came onto the scene and it made a huge splash. The mystery surrounding the author has me intrigued. It seems like from the people that I follow and watch on BookTube and Book Talk, it seems to have very mixed reviews. So I really want to make up my own opinion about it and read it, especially it's the first in a series. So it'd be fun to kind of see that as it's happening. And then my second one that I thought about is Sunrise on the Reaping.
Yes. Yes. I'm very excited about that. I didn't know. Have you read the previous Hunger Game books?
So that was going to be my question to you and our audience is I have not read the original trilogy of the Hunger Games. I have a deep love for the movies. I'm not like a rewatcher of movies, but that is one of those movies that I rewatch, like the first four movies every year and a half or so. It's one of those ones like if I'm sick or I'm depressed, like I rewatch those movies regularly. I love the storyline, and so I know that I would love the books, and I do want to read the books. But I'm also thinking because Sunrise on the Requel, Because Sunrise on the Reaping is a prequel, because we know it's Hamish's story. Maybe I don't need to read the original trilogy before reading. Like, would it be fun to read it in chronological order? Because I do
Yeah,
know the story.
right, with just the knowledge that you have from the movies. That's really interesting. Yeah, reading the original trilogy would be a reread for me, but I read it as they came out. And so it's been a while. Obviously, just like any book, there's so much more detail in there, at least literary detail. And so the books are full of a lot of different things that don't really happen in the movies. And so it would be interesting to see how you approach it. I wonder what our listeners think we should do. Should we go back and reread The Hunger Games together? Or should we
I
move
would
on
love.
to Sunrise of the Reaping just with the knowledge that we have?
Yes, please let us know in the comments if you have an
Mm,
opinion on that.
yes.
Great. So is that on one of the releases that you want to read this year?
Yeah, and then I also wanted to give a shout out to the book that was in my TBR that the second book came out by Daniel Jensen. It was A Fate Inked in Blood was the sequel, and the original book that I said that I wanted to read, I believe, was A Curse Carved in Bone, or maybe it's the other way around. But that book has come out now, the second book by Danielle Jensen, and so I wanted to give a shout out to that one as well. But Sunrise on the Reaping, I was wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, maybe we should read it together.
I know. I would pick that one up quick. That's exciting.
Oh, yeah. Maybe after we get through One Dark Window. I kind of want to read that duology together.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
And I
Sunrise on
think we're going to get through it really quick, though, because I'm like obsessed with it right
I
now.
think so too.
So
Okay,
I'm
so
always bringing up the
moving
rear. So,
my little caboose. Okay, so moving on to our most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. What do you got, girlie?
so it's definitely going to be alchemized. No,
Same.
I kind of knew you were going to say that. I am still excited. I know I haven't read Quicksilver, but I know Quicksilver 2 is coming out. I know those books. That's a big one. I know a lot of people are excited about. But again, I have not yet read Quicksilver. And so I don't know if I'm allowed to anticipate a second book when I haven't read the first. So
I think you can. Why not?
yeah, I'm excited for the series to continue and hopefully we'll catch up with it.
For
There's
sure.
just so many books and so little time.
I know. I want to read all of the books.
Yeah.
Yes, so we already touched on it. Alchemized. Alchemized, if you don't know, Manacled by Sin Yu is getting traditionally published as a book called Alchemized. So she's been reworking it, taking out all of the IP, making it like a post-war story. I'm wondering if there's still going to be some magical elements in there. I'm really curious to see how the story translates, what she keeps, what she loses, and if it's going to have the same emotional impact as Manacled did.
Yes, I'm just so happy to support this author. And now that she's going to be formally published, I'm a big fan of just picking that book up and letting her know that we're just so happy with her writing career and to just keep going.
Yes.
And what do you think your biggest bookish disappointment of the year was so far?
I feel like you already know my answer to this.
It's my answer as well.
Yeah,
Onyx Storm.
yeah. Onyx
Um,
Storm. Womp womp.
Yeah. But
And
that doesn't mean we won't read the next book necessarily. I mean,
absolutely.
they're definitely like easy to get through.
Hmm.
And, it's like a little ruckusy ride that you go on with those dragons. But I think that we just had some plot holes that maybe will get fixed up. Who knows?
Right. I think there's still hope for the series. For me, in my notes, I wrote that there was really no payoffs. There is so many unanswered questions. The questions that were answered from the last book led to all these other questions. It felt like we had all of these weird little side tangents that didn't kind of come together to make a full picture. Main character has a ton of plot armor, and there's just immediate conflict resolution after immediate conflict resolution, again leading to no payoffs, no stakes. And I thought it was a shame because just looking back through like my Goodreads, I gave Fourth Wing 4 stars. I thought it was so fun. I
Yeah.
was really invested in the story. I was excited to see where the author was going to take it next, to learn more about like the inner workings of the Empyrean. And I just felt like Iron Flame, I was like, oh, this one didn't really hit for me. And then this one was even worse than Iron Flame. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like maybe we've talked about this before, but maybe there's just some pressure from just like being the largest series in the world currently. There was a lot put on the author's
Yeah, Rebecca
shoulders
Yarros.
to make sure that she produced, and kept up with that pace. And I think that that can be dangerous in terms of staying true to your original thought sometimes when you're put on deadline, essentially.
Right, and also stretched thinner.
Right.
So not only was it the process sped up, it was also like, no, we need 5 books from you instead of 3 books.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm, like you said, we'll be reading the next book. And if you're curious about more in depth thoughts on Onyx Storm, we do have a review of Onyx Storm, and we'll link that in the description as well, so you can check that out if you're curious. But let's move on to the most surprising reads that snuck up on us.
For me, this might surprise you, but I think that Great Big Beautiful Life was the most surprising for me. I started out with that book not really enjoying it at all. I found the characters to be trite and droll and boring, and I could go on and on. But then once the story hit the twist, I felt like a lot of my personal experience was vindicated. And also, I loved for the author to be able to shine light on something that is complicated but beautiful. And I think that whenever I get an opportunity to talk about that, it brings a lot of beauty into my life, even if the subject matter isn't that beautiful. And I thought that it was very fulfilling for me. That
So,
was a big surprise for me.
yeah, actually, I have another Emily Henry book on my little surprises.
Yeah.
I found myself enjoying People We Meet on Vacation way more than I thought that I would.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nice little departure from the fantasy world, especially after reading so many fantasy novels back to back. I did need to like touch my toes in a pool and drink a 7-Eleven slushy margarita and fall in love with some guy that I knew forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it surprised me, and I did enjoy that one quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, those are really fun. And I like them in between our heavy fantasy books.
Me too. And by the way, a lot of these books that we're talking about, we do have more in depth discussions of them. So if you're interested and you like the way that we talk about books, or you agree or align with some of our opinions, we'll have other videos linked in the description. And make sure to check out our channel because we're constantly reading new things and uploading new content.
Yeah. And if you don't like our opinions and you don't like the way that we talk about things, we're also open to hearing what that's about because we like to hear how you like to talk about books. And we're always open to hearing everyone's thoughts on this. This is a nice open platform. We're here for everyone.
Yes. Okay, so our last question. What do we want to read before December 31st?
Yes. So I really had to think about this one because I kind of know what I'm going to read. Like I already know what I'm going to read before the end of the year. But if I could pick one off of the TBR from earlier in the year that I could try to make a push for is the Poppy War trilogy. But it is so serious and war again. It's more war and politics. And so even though that is on my list, I don't know if it's time for it yet, just because it's really, I've heard it's a really sad, heavy book.
Right.
I don't know if I'm in the mood for that right now. So I
That's
don't know, I'm kind of
totally
mixed,
fair.
but I want to hear, is there anything off of our TBR list that you really wanted us to read? And and what did you think, Tess? How about you?
So I put all the things, like,
Yeah.
I really want to finish like everything. I really want to get back into Spark of the Everflame. I really want to read Alchemized. I said, will it be 900 plus pages? Will it destroy what's left of my heart? And also, I have a horror book that I want to read this year, like a horror suspense. And
Ooh.
it's called We Used to Live Here. It actually just came in the mail. It kept popping up on my socials. And I actually pre-ordered it because I saw a couple people who got the arc for it and really liked it. And it's essentially like we don't really know. Let me just read here. As a young queer couple who flip houses, Charlie and Eve can't believe their killer deal they've just gotten on an old property in the picturesque neighborhood. While Eve works on the house one day, there's a knock on the door. A man stands there with his family, claiming to have lived here before and asking whether it'd be all right if he showed his kids around. People pleaser to a fault, Eve lets them in. As soon as the strangers enter their home, inexplicable things start to happen. The family's youngest child goes missing, and a ghostly presence materializes in the basement. Even weirder, the family can't seem to take the hint that their visit should be over. And when Charlie suddenly vanishes, Eve slowly loses her grip on reality. Something is terribly wrong with the house and with the visiting family. Or is Eve just imagining things?
Wow, that's very interesting.
Oh, I feel like that could be fun around like
Who's
spooky
the author?
season. It's
Yeah.
Marcus Kleiwer.
Marcus
Marcus
Clyburn.
Clyburn.
Wow.
Heard it compared to House of Leaves,
Yeah.
which is like a teenage favorite. So I thought that would be fun.
Yeah, it reminds me of this was it a TV show? The show
Oh,
The Watcher? It reminds
okay.
me of that. That's like almost
Yeah,
exactly the plot of The Watcher, right?
kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, where they move in and like someone said that they used to live there or yeah, something like
Something
that.
weird.
Interesting. That one gave me the creeps, so I really like it.
Yeah, I feel like that could be fun to like read spooky season this year. We've kind of taken like a little detour for the summer and we've read like a bunch of contemporary romances. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe some like horror suspense. Maybe we'll even read a Colleen Hoover like Verity or something
Yeah.
just to talk about it. All right, so that pretty much sums up our mid-year check-in. We've laughed from our books that we've read, we've cried from our books that we've read, we have sort of DNF'd, maybe shelved to come back later, and we're only halfway through the year.
We would love to hear your answers to some of the questions that we talked about today. What's been your best book so far? And what do you still hope to get to before the end of the year?
Drop us a comment on YouTube or send us a DM on Instagram. We're at Basically Bookish Pod, and we're always down for a good book rec or event sesh.
And if you made it all the way to the end of this episode, leave us a bookish or fire emoji in the comments to know you're part of the Basically Bookish inner circle.
If you're loving the pod, don't forget to follow and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps new listeners find us and keeps the bookish vibes going.
We'll see you in the next episode, and happy reading.
Happy reading!